My name is Dr. Alex. I am not a licensed physician and I am not diagnosing or treating anyone. What I do is take the peer-reviewed research from journals you can look up yourself and explain it in a way that gives you the information your doctor may not have had time to share. Today, I am going to walk you through 5 things the research says about breakfast and blood sugar after 60, not 5 foods, 5 principles. Each one is backed by published studies, and by the end I am going to give you a simple, practical breakfast blueprint, a real meal you can make in under 10 minutes. That applies every one of those principles. No supplements, no expensive ingredients, just science turned into a plate of food. Stay with me all the way through, because the 5th principle, the actual breakfast assembly, only works if you understand why each piece is there. And the 3rd principle on this list is something so simple that when I first read the study, I thought the results had to be wrong. Eating the exact same meal, the exact same calories, the exact same carbohydrates but in a different order, and the glucose spike drops by 40%. Same food, different sequence, 40%. I will show you the study. Before we go deeper, I want to ask you something. What did you eat for breakfast this morning? Just type it in the comments. Toast, cereal, oatmeal, eggs, nothing, whatever it was. Because by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly how that meal affected your blood sugar, and what you could have done differently with the same ingredients. Here is what almost no one explains about blood sugar in the morning. Your body does something overnight that most people have never heard of. It is called the dawn phenomenon. Between roughly 4 and 8 in the morning, your liver releases a surge of stored glucose into your bloodstream. This is a survival mechanism. Your body is preparing you to wake up, to move, to have energy before you eat. In a younger body with a well-functioning pancreas, insulin handles that surge without any trouble. But after 60, especially if there is any degree of insulin resistance, your body struggles to bring that glucose back. Down, you wake up with a blood sugar level that is already elevated, already climbing, before you have eaten a single thing. Now think about what most people do next. They eat toast. They drink juice. They have cereal with milk. All of those foods are carbohydrate dense. They break down into glucose, and they land on top of a system that is already dealing with more glucose than it can handle. It is like pouring water into a cup that is already 3/4 full. You are not starting from 0. You are starting from 75%. Think of your morning blood sugar like a thermostat. When you are younger, the thermostat is responsive. It adjusts quickly. You eat carbs, insulin brings the temperature back down, and the system resets. After 60, the thermostat starts to lag. It takes longer to respond. It overshoots, and if you keep turning up the heat with a high carbohydrate breakfast, the system never fully catches up. By mid-morning, your blood sugar is still elevated. By lunch, you are starting from an even higher baseline. And that compounding effect, meal after meal, day after day, is what pushes people from normal glucose levels into prediabetes, and from prediabetes into type 2 diabetes, without ever realizing what started it. This is the most well-studied principle on this list. And it may be the single most impactful change you can make to your morning routine. Researchers at the University of Missouri conducted a study on men and women with type 2 diabetes. They had participants eat either a high-protein breakfast, 35% protein, 45% carbohydrate, or a high-carbohydrate breakfast, 15% protein, 65% carbohydrate. Same total calories, 500 each. The result, T's, published in the Journal of Nutrition, were striking. The high-protein group had significantly lower glucose levels after breakfast. But here is what makes this study remarkable. They also had better glucose control after lunch, even though both groups ate the exact same lunch. The lead researcher, Dr. Jill Canali, put it simply. She said the first meal of the day is critical in maintaining glycemic control at later meals because it primes the body for the rest of the day. The high-protein breakfast stimulated greater release of GIP, glucose-dependent insulinotropic peptide, a gut hormone that improves insulin response. In other words, eating protein first does not just help you at breakfast. It sets your body up to handle carbohydrates better for the next 8 hours. What does this look like in practice? Eggs, Greek yogurt, a small portion of cottage cheese, a handful of nuts. Any source of protein that you eat before or at least alongside any carbohydrate in your breakfast, not after, not as a side thought, as the foundation of the meal. This is the one I mentioned at the top. And it is the one that, when you see the data, changes your understanding of how meals work. Researchers at Weill Cornell Medicine published a study showing that when people with prediabetes ate vegetables and protein before carbohydrates, the exact same meal, just in a different sequence, their post-meal glucose spikes dropped by approximately 40% compared to eating carbohydrates first. 40%. Same food, same plate, different order. A Japanese study published in Nutrients confirmed the finding. Eating vegetables first and carbohydrates last reduced blood glucose and insulin spikes regardless of how fast the person ate. And a 16-week pilot study at Weill Cornell found that people who adopted a carbohydrate-last eating pattern in their daily lives not only had lower blood sugar, they also lost weight and improved their overall diet quality without being told to change what they ate. Here is why it works. When vegetables and protein hit your small intestine first, they create a physical and chemical buffer. The fiber from the vegetables forms a mesh-like barrier in the intestinal lining. It slows the absorption of the glucose that arrives later when the carbohydrate portion is digested. Instead of a flood, your bloodstream gets a trickle. Instead of a spike, you get a gentle curve. Same food, dramatically different metabolic outcome. For breakfast, this means something very specific. If you are going to have toast and you can eat your eggs and vegetables first, finish them, then eat the toast. That one change, which costs you nothing and requires no new ingredients, can reduce your glucose spike by nearly half. Fiber does something at breakfast that no other nutrient does. It slows everything down. It slows the rate at which your stomach empties. It slows the speed at which carbohydrates are broken into glucose. It slows the absorption of that glucose through the intestinal wall. And by slowing all of those processes, it gives your aging pancreas the time it needs to produce enough insulin to keep up. This is why oatmeal, despite being a carbohydrate, can still be part of a blood sugar-friendly breakfast. If it is prepared correctly, steel-cut or rolled oats have a significantly lower glycemic index than instant oats. The fiber is intact. The structure is preserved. Your body has to work to break it down. But the moment you add sugar, flavored syrup, dried fruit, or honey, you have turned a slow-digesting food into a fast one. And if you are eating it first, before any protein, you have also violated the order principle. Non-starchy vegetables, spinach, peppers, tomatoes, mushrooms are among the highest fiber, lowest glycemic foods available. Adding them to your breakfast is one of the simplest ways to anchor the entire meal. A vegetable omelet is not just a protein source. It is a fiber delivery system that physically slows glucose absorption. And research from Ohio State University's Department of Internal Medicine confirms that this vegetable-first approach helps prevent the post-meal blood sugar spikes that can damage blood vessels over time. This is one of the most surprising findings in the blood sugar literature, and it involves something that has been sitting in most kitchens for decades. Multiple studies have shown that consuming a small amount of vinegar before or with a carbohydrate-rich meal can reduce post-meal blood glucose levels by approximately 20%. A study published in Diabetes Care found that people with insulin resistance who consumed vinegar before a high-carbohydrate meal improved their insulin sensitivity by up to 34% compared to placebo. Another study found that 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar before bed lowered fasting glucose by 4 to 6% in people with type 2 diabetes. How does it work? The acetic acid in vinegar slows gastric emptying, meaning food stays in your stomach longer before reaching the small intestine. It also appears to inhibit certain enzymes that break down starch, further slowing the conversion of carbohydrates into glucose. And there is some evidence that acetic acid helps muscle cells take up glucose more efficiently when insulin is present. The practical application is simple. 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in a glass of water, consumed 10 to 15 minutes before breakfast. That is it. The vinegar must be diluted, never consumed straight, because the acidity can damage tooth enamel and irritate the esophagus, and it should never replace any prescribed medication. But as an addition to your breakfast routine, the research supports it consistently. Now let me put all 4 principles together into a single meal that you can make tomorrow morning in under 10 minutes. Step 1. 10 to 15 minutes before you eat, drink 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in 8 ounces of water. This activates the gastric slowing effect before any food arrives. Step 2. Prepare your protein and vegetables first. 2 eggs, scrambled, fried, or poached, whatever you prefer, cooked with a handful of spinach, a few slices of bell pepper, and some mushrooms. If you prefer, Substitute the eggs for a small portion of Greek yogurt or cottage cheese with a handful of walnuts. The goal is 25 to 35% of your breakfast calories coming from protein. Step 3. Eat the protein and vegetables first. Finish them before you touch any carbohydrate on the plate. Step 4. Now add your carbohydrate and keep it small and slow. 1 slice of whole grain toast, or a quarter cup of steel-cut oats, or half a cup of berries, not all 3. 1 source. Whole, unprocessed, and eaten last. That is the blueprint. Vinegar first, protein and vegetables second, carbohydrate last and small. Every principle on this list, the protein priming, the food order, the fiber anchor, the vinegar effect is built into one simple plate. No special equipment, no expensive supplements, no radical changes, just 5 pieces of science arranged in the right sequence. And here is what the research tells us that sequence does to your body. Your morning glucose spike is blunted. Your insulin response is more efficient. The second meal phenomenon kicks in, priming your gut hormones to handle lunch better than they would have otherwise. And the cumulative effect, day after day, week after week, is a measurable reduction in average blood sugar levels. Not from medication, from breakfast. The following is a composite illustration based on published research patterns. This is not a real patient. No individual medical history is being described. Dorothy was 67, retired librarian. She had been told by her doctor that her fasting blood sugar was creeping up, 112, then 118, then 122 over 3 visits. Not diabetes. Tick yet. But heading there, her doctor mentioned medication as the next step if the numbers kept rising. Dorothy did not want medication if she could avoid it. She asked what she could change. Her doctor said lose some weight, eat healthier, exercise more. Broad advice. Well-intentioned, but not specific enough to change anything. Dorothy was already eating what she thought was healthy. Oatmeal every morning with raisins and a glass of orange juice. Whole grains. Fruit, exactly what she had been told to eat for 30 years. What nobody told her was that her morning routine was the problem. The oatmeal was instant high glycemic index, pre-processed, fast digesting. The raisins added concentrated sugar. The orange juice added another 30 grams of glucose, with no fiber to slow it down. And she ate it all first thing, on an empty stomach, with no protein to buffer the spike. Every single morning, Dorothy's daughter found a video like this one. She showed it to her mother. They rebuilt the breakfast together. 2 eggs, scrambled with spinach and tomatoes. 1 thin slice of whole grain toast eaten last. A glass of water with a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before the meal. Same kitchen, same budget, same 10 minutes of prep time. 3 months later, Dorothy's fasting glucose was 108. Her doctor asked what she changed. She said breakfast. Just breakfast. Her doctor smiled and said, keep doing what you are doing. Let me pull this together with the clarity it deserves. Because this is not about perfection. It is about a direction change that your body will notice within days. The 5 principles again. 1. Make protein the foundation, not the afterthought. 2. Eat your vegetables and protein before your carbohydrates. 3. Anchor the meal with fiber from non-starchy, vegetables or minimally processed whole grains. 4. Consider a tablespoon of diluted apple cider vinegar 10 to 15 minutes before eating. 5. Assemble the plate in the right order and keep the carbohydrate portions small and slow digesting. Now here is the safety piece, and I need you to hear this clearly. If you are currently on metformin, insulin, a sulfonylurea, or any blood sugar-lowering medication, do not change your medication based on this video. Do not reduce your dose. Do not skip a pill. If you make dietary changes that lower your blood sugar, talk to your prescribing physician so they can adjust your medication appropriately. Dietary changes and medication changes must be coordinated, never done independently. The goal of this video is to give you a conversation to bring to your doctor, not a prescription to follow on your own. B-roll, doctor consulting with patient, office setting iStock, doctor-patient consultation office. And one more thing, if you are someone who currently skips breakfast entirely, the research suggests that is not the answer either. Skipping breakfast can extend the fasting period in a way that amplifies the dawn phenomenon and leads to even higher glucose levels at lunch. A small, protein-rich, low-carbohydrate breakfast is almost always better for blood sugar management than no breakfast at all. Here is what I want you to do right now. In the comments, tell me which of the 5 principles you are going to try first. Just the number 1 for protein first, 2 for food order, 3 for the fiber anchor, 4 for the vinegar effect, 5 for the full blueprint. One number, that is all I need, because those numbers tell me exactly what to go deeper on in future videos. And speaking of future videos, if you found this useful, there is one I think you should watch next. It covers the 5 everyday foods you should never reheat after 60, because the chemical changes that happen during reheating produce compounds your body was not designed to handle, especially if you are already managing blood sugar. That video is on the screen right now. I will see you there. Stay sharp, stay informed, and take care of the people who matter to you.